This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to this podcast, episode 21. No, wait a minute. That's not right. I even changed the title here so I could read it correctly. Welcome to this podcast, season 4, episode 21. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
And we have Jaime Lopez Jr. on the line in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Alrighty. So let's start off with some fact check. I remember to put down the time here, but at 2:30 in the America song on the West Side Story film, or in the film, at 2 minutes 30 seconds in, the boys in the chorus do sing La 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 America. Who knew?
Ha! I feel vindicated.
Well, you were vindicated last week when I read the title, but anyway. I mentioned this. I mentioned the Flash and how I get confused by the two of them, but I still don't even. I had to look up the names of these guys. That's how confused I get. So Grant Gustin plays Barry Allen on TV in the 2014 series, and Ezra Miller plays the Flash in the DC verse, starting in 2016. So those are the boys who are the Flash, and
there was a crossover where Ezra did show up on the Flash TV show for a scene.
What? Yep. As like a multiverse Flash?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Thereby implying that they are all in the same multiverse.
Interesting. Well, yeah, same multiverse. That's that's a kind of an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yes.
Alrighty, and June Lockhart plays Maureen Robinson in the Lost in Space franchise, and surprisingly, she's the voice of the computer Alpha Control in Netflix Lost in Space series it's on now. And she was also the principal in the 1998 movie. She played the high school principal. And cool. And for those of you who are really, really old, she was also Lassie's mom in the original Lassie TV show and movies. So Timmy, Lassie's falling down the hole.
Isn't that the moment that you see
Timmy falls down?
Timmy's in the well.
Come on, Lassie, tell me what's... Yeah, she would have been the one saying, Lassie, what's going on? Yeah, she was the mom.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's the fact check. So we'll move on to the headlines, and Jonathan's got a whole bunch of things for us.
I got some good stuff for us today. So this one I just saw this evening, and it was interesting. I did not know that this was happening, but we got news just this evening. There is going to be a new Star Trek video game. Star Trek Resurgence has been announced. It's on StarTrek.com as of this evening. New game coming for Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4 gaming consoles, and exclusively on the Epic Game Store for PCs. Star Trek Resurgence. I'm going to read this because I don't have it memorized. Star Trek Resurgence is an interactive narrative video game that tells an original story set in the era shortly after the events of Star Trek The Next Generation. Stationed aboard the USS Resolute, players will assume the role of two principal characters, First Officer Jara Rydek and engineering crew person Carter Diaz, as they unravel a sinister mystery involving two alien civilizations on the brink of war. Throughout the game, players will immerse themselves in the Star Trek universe, interacting with new and returning characters through a variety of dialogue and action gameplay to determine the course of the story. Cool.
Is that spelt the same as the President Redick or whatever her name is?
No.
Relic,
no.
Relic, right?
That's Rillick. Yeah, this is Rydek. But I mean, I gotta be honest. I have not played, I think, any Star Trek game that I really liked. Now, I will admit that is a very limited number, and I'm talking about starting back with like the Sega Genesis.
So you never played the Star Trek game on the Mac with Captain Kirk and Spock and
think so.
The flower that spits in his face and stuff.
Oh God, yes, I do remember that. That was the delete thing, wasn't it?
Mac Play, I think.
Is it Mac Play? Yeah. I did play that. There was a few over the years. I don't really feel like they all try to get a little too either just game styles I'm not wild about. They either do like sort of RPG kind of things, or they do like space strategy stuff, which again is not really my cup of tea. But apparently this is the people who worked on this worked on some of the Telltale games, so The Walking Dead, The Wolf Among Us, Batman, the Telltale series, and stuff like that, which are really cool. They're really well done, sort of narrative adventure, sort of choose your path kind of stories. So this could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
I like a good Star Trek game.
Good Star Trek game is hard to find. There actually was, back in the early Mac days, there was, back when they were little black and white Macs, right? There was an early network game that had a Star Trek theme to it. I think you get all your little Mac Plus or your Mac Pluses together, and you'd string them all together with like phone lines, and then you could play like an online game. It was like I think it was text based, right? But that was really kind of fun thing.
I was a fan of the old text-based games back in a long time ago in the land far, far away.
Yeah, wasn't Final Fantasy like that originally?
I don't know. I only ever played Final Fantasy starting with the Nintendo NES. Yeah.
But weren't they kind of like
there were some
like Dungeons and Dragons where like you roll the dice and you get to do this?
Very much like you put in your response and then it dictates where you're going next. And I played some of those back when I was in like junior high and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So moving on to the MCU, a place we like to hang out from time to time. We'll talk about Hawkeye later in this episode 4 of Hawkeye. And so we got a couple pieces of MCU news this week. One, we got confirmation from the Uberfuhrer of the MCU, Kevin Feige, that Charlie Cox will return as Daredevil. Now, this seems like another obvious one. It's like, it's like them admitting that, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are going to be in the new Spider-Man movie. Like, duh. But it is nice to be official to have him say, I can't say when or where, but he is coming back. Because I think, again, Tim, I don't think you've watched the Daredevil series.
I haven't. No, the Netflix thing? No, I was going to.
Yeah. Jaime, have you watched it?
I've seen some of Daredevil. I mostly got into Jessica Jones and Luke Cage.
Yep.
And the Defenders.
Yeah. I really enjoyed Daredevil. Was probably I loved Jessica Jones season 1. Season 2 wasn't quite as much for me, but I really that there's a couple scenes, just the way it's filmed, the way that it sort of captures that street level vigilante kind of stuff, and just the acting caliber of the Daredevil series was fantastic. Charlie Cox was great, but I'm hoping that this is just the first part of more too, because Charlie Cox coming back is one thing, and maybe we'll talk about this a little more with the Hawkeye discussion later on, but I'm really hoping that they bring back Vincent D'Onofrio as the kingpin of crime, the mob boss of all mob bosses in New York City, because he was just incredibly captivating in that series, and I hope that he has a place in the reforming MCU, because I think he would be a great bad guy to add to the MCU. The other bit of news that we have is that Shang-Chi, starring Mississauga's own Simu Liu, is getting a sequel. Now, I don't want to say this was a no-brainer, but it was kind of a no-brainer. The movie did well, all things being equal, accounting for COVID and all circumstances being what they are. But they announced this week that Destin Daniel Cretton, who is the director and co-creator of I think he was the co-writer of it as well, has signed an overall deal to return and do more stuff for Marvel Studios. He is going to work on the sequel as well as a new Disney Plus series, subject to be determined. So, yeah, kind of a weird sort of backhanded way to come at it, but pretty cool that we now know we are going to get a little bit more from Shang-Chi. I think they left it open at the end of it. You could have interpreted it as there's going to be more, or you could have interpreted it as you'll see him again, and it's nice to know it's going to be his own adventure.
Yeah, instead of being like an Avengers one or him showing up in somebody else's movie.
Yeah, I mean, they could do that, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't show up in the end as an Avenger and and sort of go off to the next thing. But yeah, I think this is great news that we're going to get some more. I thought that movie was really charming and fun. Next up, I have some sad news to share. We got news this week that comic book icon, and I do not use that term lightly in this case, George Perez announced that he's facing a terminal cancer diagnosis. He has pancreatic cancer, and he's been given 6 to 12 months to live. this hit the community pretty hard this week. A lot of us were, aware, George had to retire as an artist a few years back because of recurring problems with his arms. Obviously, he's been an artist his whole life. His repetitive stress on his arms has been pretty dramatic, and just the amazing detail with which he worked must have just been painstaking to do. So obviously that kind of thing takes a toll, but to find out this week that, he's got stage 3 pancreatic cancer. He's declined to undergo treatment. He said, he weighed all the options, and in the end, he just wants to spend, he said, I've opted just to let nature take its course, and I will enjoy whatever time I have left as fully as possible with my family, friends, and fans. He's 67, so this is obviously far, 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 far too soon for him to go. He is just a freaking legend. He drew the original Infinity Gauntlet miniseries on which the MCU is founded. He drew Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is the seminal crossover story of DC Comics in the 80s. He huge long runs on Avengers, Wonder Woman. There's just pretty much not a character that he has drawn. His work on New Teen Titans is amongst the greatest ever put to paper. He is by any account as important to the universe of comic books, to the influence of comic books over time as anyone in the 20th century. And this is just absolutely heartbreaking news. As I say, I saw a lot of people in the comics community that I'm pretty connected with sharing their reminiscences about, meeting him. I have had a chance to meet him and to interview him in the past. I have a sketch that he drew for me in my sketchbook that is one of my most treasured possessions. I just cannot say enough about what a incredible talent, but also an incredible person George is. Just the nicest, most generous with his time, kind person, especially for someone of his stature, in the community. It's just an unbelievably sad moment to know that he's facing this and that his family's facing this. But I guess all we can do is take the time we have left to share with him how much he means to us, and how much his work means to us, and to give him, all the dues that he deserves before he goes.
Sad news.
Over to Jaime for some happier news.
Yeah, and I put these next two items purposely next to each other to juxtapose very strangely different strategies. So I'm going to start off with this one with Peacock, which is the streaming service owned by NBC Universal. Apparently, it will start streaming many, but not all, NBC Universal movies as soon as 45 days after theatrical release. They cover a few that will be included, like Halloween Ends, Downton Abbey, The 355. It won't include Jurassic World Dominion, and probably some other bigger ones like this Nolan film, Oppenheimer. So kind of an increasingly changing world, as we've seen, of as things start coming out of the pandemic, what happens to streaming services and the way that they deal with movies and their relationship with theaters. It looks like around 45 days instead of 90 days before exclusivity for theaters. So it seems like this has cut that window in half. So you'll expect to see these things showing up much, much sooner from streaming services. Anything on this one?
Yeah, it's still an interesting choice that they're talking about 45 days, especially in places where movie going is still, for a lot of people, it's a personal choice as to their appetite for risk, right? It is interesting that that's the model that it seems everyone's willing to move to, even though we are not anywhere near the end of the global pandemic. We are still, we could be near the end. We don't know, but we might just be at the beginning, or we might be in the middle. And, I think it's still a strange choice given all of the circumstances in the world that we're still talking about, 45 days when your only choice during that window is to go see it in the theater, and that, the internet is the internet.
Silly. I just tweeted out earlier that I got a notice from one of the hotels where I have points that they were going to remove my points if I don't plan a trip by December 31st, which I just thought was ludicrous. had they not noticed that there's like a worldwide pandemic? And I mean, I couldn't even go to the hotel even if I wanted to, right? So
she's gonna get more aggressive. It's like, what have you got to lose, chicken?
Yeah, really. Like,
but double dog dare you to come to our hotel.
Yeah, come quarantine in our hotel, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't like the way I'm talking to you? Say it to my face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, like, I don't know. So, I mean, if they're going to release these to the so what was the point that they're going to release them like 45 days after they're in the theater, right?
Yeah. So the exclusivity window for movie theaters will continue to shrink. It was apparently 90 days before at a minimum, and now it'll be 45 days at a minimum. Although it looks like some of NBC Universal's more premium movies are not going to follow this quick 45 days. So Jurassic
and
World,
that's the same number that Disney Plus has been going with, right? I think that is where the model has been set, and it seems to be working for them. They feel like they can squeeze, a few 100 million. Yeah, it sounds like they think they can still squeeze a few 100 million out of movie-going patrons before they put it onto their streaming platforms, and so they're going to do that in spite of the fact that many other of their patrons won't be able to see it, but wait till it comes on their platforms.
Yeah, I think this probably also makes it easier for them to figure out what they're doing with the streaming windows of like, okay, so this particular series is delayed. Well, that's not too bad because we could just throw in, this movie right at the 45 days. Oh, okay. So people will subscribe during then, and then the following month we'll be able to catch up with this series. Like I can see them trying to plot out, years in advance of like what exactly is going to be the thing that draws people to our service for that sweet monthly subscription price.
Yeah. Well, we joked about that too, Jaime. You obviously had been the model that these services don't want, which is you pick it up, you watch it for as long as whatever's on is on, and then you drop it and you pick it back up again when you need to. But a couple of these different services have done a good job of keeping you on the hook for a while now, right?
Yeah, I almost feel like personal responsibility that in the first season of Disco, as soon as it ended, I canceled CBS All Access. And then they had a little survey of like, oh, why did you cancel? I said, because Star Trek ended. and since then, they're like, okay, well, what if we do short treks, one a month for 15 minutes, and we stretch them out? And then we finally figured out how to
would you pay $5 a month?
So what I'm hearing is that this current spigot on full of Star Trek that we've been getting this last little while, where we have like overlapping shows, is all traceable back to Jaime Lopez Jr. So you were like, I'm canceling because of Star Trek, and somebody in an office somewhere was like, oh, you're gonna get Star Trek. Oh,
just gonna keep feeding it to you. Yeah.
We're gonna make all the Star Treks, Jaime. You're gonna want to be back in.
Let's back up. What does CBS All Access cost you? Like, what does it cost?
It's Paramount Plus now, right?
Correct. They kept the pricing the same, I think. I believe it's $5.99 a month for the ads tier, and I want to say $9.99 a month for the ad-free tier.
So you're on the $5.99 a month, right?
Correct.
And then so I mean, but they bill you monthly, or they expect you to pay for the year?
This is monthly.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of wonder what would you pay if they said they would charge you per episode? Like, would you pay $1.99 per episode?
Well, let's see. At $6, and depending on which month it is, you would get 4 episodes.
Well, let's just take Discovery. Like, there's four episodes of Discovery a month. Let's say sometimes there's 5, right? So
looks like $1.49 and 75 per episode.
And let them worry about the credit card chargebacks and all that kind of stuff per transaction, and because each transaction costs some money, right? Mm-hmm. Theoretically, I mean, in this digital age, it doesn't really cost. Like, it's not like they're mailing letters and going to banks and putting checks, and like somebody has to physically go deposit a check. So like all that kind of costly overhead's taken away from them, right? So I just wonder, like, if their calculus was changed so that you paid per episode, they would still get their blood money, right? But they wouldn't have you joining up and dropping off and whatever, right? And have they ever given you a hard time about reinstating your account, or?
No, that's one of the things that I think, regardless of whether cutting the cord is a savings or not, and there's definitely tons of argument all over around that, I think it's really difficult to compare the user experience where I can jump in and out at any time that I want. They tend to services tend to prorate what you've got, and they tend to be pretty nice about like just leaving you with service until your next billing would have occurred.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of cutting you off
sense.
immediately, like some providers do. And I can do it in the middle of the night. If you wanted to, you could take your device into the toilet with you and subscribe and unsubscribe, and you don't have to be on the phone with like a cable provider, right? Who's trying to like get you to sign up for the triple play and add voice over IP to your account. It's like, no, dude, I just want to leave. Well, what if I gave you HBO for like $1 a month? No, I just want to leave, right?
Yeah.
It's very different. It's hard to put a price on that.
So, Jaime, did you say it was $5.99?
I believe it's $5.99 a month.
Yeah, so that's what I'm seeing for Canada as well. It's $5.99 Canadian a month.
Ooh, that's like that in a
That's a
Timbit,
savings right there. It's
I was
like
going to say,
20 cents.
I think we're kind of screwing you guys over because 30 cents on the dollar is what the exchange rate is about right now. So,
25% discount if you move to Vancouver.
So we're saving $1.80 on you. Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit in my pick for stick around, kids, because when we get around to the watch list, I'm going to talk about a show that you can only watch on Paramount Plus, and we'll have a little discussion there about whether or not it's time for Canadians to consider Paramount Plus.
Ooh.
How's that for a teaser?
Yeah, and if this helps sweeten the deal, Paramount Plus has added live streaming channels to Paramount Plus. It's
won't be in Canada.
It's weird. Apparently, it's inspired by and informed by Pluto TV, which we had talked about before as being the way to get your Star Trek Discovery if you're outside of North America. I did take a quick look at this. There are, in fact, channels that are based on genre. It's almost like watching like a comedy channel or watching a drama channel. There is a Star Trek channel, and I was confused about this because on the one hand, I'm like, all right, I could see that there's people who are like, I don't want to choose a specific episode out of the multi-decades library. I just want it on in the background because it warms my life and I just want to veg for a while. And also at the same time, I'm thinking Paramount Plus has gone all the way around in a circle to reinvent broadcast television on its streaming service, right? I think I tuned in today and I said, oh, what are they showing? Like Measure of a Man? Should I watch the last 10 minutes of this episode, or should I just go search for Star Trek TNG, episode, whatever it is, season 2 of Measure of a Man?
Yep. It's a good episode.
Watch it from the beginning and pause it and play. I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of weird to be like, oh, it's like as if I was watching on over-the-air TV and you're just sort of at the mercy of, oh, if only I hadn't gone to the toilet, I missed the best scene,
Well, not to mention the fact that it's like, it's sort of, you're right, it's like a time warp. You're like, oh, remember when you used to come in at the end of things and be like, oh, I guess I'll watch the end of it, and I missed the beginning, and I don't want to go back to that world. Thank you. All right, well, I've got a little more sad news for our headlines here, and we can discuss whether or not this is deeply sad news, but it was announced today that the Cowboy Bebop live action show has been canceled by Netflix after just one season. It's only been out for a month. Apparently, it was not what they were expecting as far as the response. It has a pretty low number on Rotten Tomatoes. It's 46% critics, 56% audience. Ooh. And so it wasn't enough for them to justify coming back and doing more. So Cowboy Bebop, for all its hype and all the attention that it was getting, it didn't even make it past that first season.
Well, I do know that I hadn't watched any of it, and I've not seen the original series, but apparently people were saying that it was not holding up any kind of comparison to the original series, the original anime, right? So,
Jaime, did you have a chance to watch it yet?
I only saw the first episode, it's weird because the anime has something like 26, what are they, probably 20-ish minute episodes, and so you would think, oh, well, out of 10 episodes, they just do about a 10-hour-long long live action episodes, they should be able to get roughly 3 animated episodes worth of content in there. But instead, they mostly went the opposite direction, said, let's just take the first episode from the anime and stretch it out to an hour. And it's not totally fair because they do introduce Faye Valentine a little early, so they kind of blended, but it feels like 1.25 episodes at most when it really should have been about 3 episodes. And I was a little surprised at first to think, wait, what do you mean after one season? It should only be one season. It can't possibly be many. And I was like, oh no, wait a minute. Yeah, I guess if you take each one, we stretch it out, it could have been hypothetically a 3-season series.
Well, and I guess it depends on what they intended to do. In theory, they could have said, we're going to use this as a jumping off point and then do our own interpretation of sort of the Bebop verse and told entirely unique stories. It's a question of whether they were doing an adaptation or whether they were doing, freestyle jazz, right? So I guess they could have gone other places with it, but in the end, they're going nowhere with it.
All right, my story up here is the Rolling Stones has published the top 20 shows of 2021, and I wanted to point out that Loki is in position 18, pretty good there. And then we have next up, I think WandaVision is Squid Game, which I think only Jaime has seen Squid Game, right? Is in 15th place, and number 10 is WandaVision. 13 is Mystic Quest, which we've talked about many times on this show. And then number 10 is WandaVision, and number 1 position is For All Mankind, which I'm still a little upset about. I mean, it's...
sorry, I looked at this list and was like, Ted Lasso is not on this list.
No, Ted Lasso is not on this list. Are you surprised by that?
I question. I thought the second season was quite enjoyable. I could see why people didn't find it quite as gratifying as season 1 because it builds more and doesn't finish more. But I thought it was a pretty strong season. I know people got all bent out of shape about that Coach Beard episode, which I thought was fantastic. But
the pants, yeah,
that was such a great episode.
And like a beautiful he wears the pants for the rest of the series. Right?
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah, I like the twist ending too. I thought that was really interesting. Like who saw that coming? And then I didn't get that.
Quietly raises hand in corner.
Yeah. Sorry?
You said, who saw that coming? Sits in the corner quietly raising his hand.
You saw? Well, yeah, I mean, because they sort of built it up in the last episode or 2, right?
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. But I don't know. Do you think Ted wasn't completely supportive and whatever, and it was all about him?
No, I don't agree with Nate's perspective on that. I think I could see why Nate feels hurt. I could see how he could have his feelings about it, but I don't think, as we are the objective viewers, I don't think that was the circumstance. I think that was really all in Nate's head.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think he was, again, I think he equates Ted to his dad and his dad's disapproval to Ted's disapproval, and it's really quite Shakespearean, all things being equal.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I thought Ted was giving him the benefit of the doubt in the times he did, right?
Yeah, and I think more than anything,
we're spoiling it for people who haven't seen the ending. But,
yeah, I think really it was about. It was really about, Nate, all the stuff that Nate had going on, and, how Ted sort of thought after, building him up this last season, he's good now. And maybe he didn't pay as much attention as he could have or should have. But then again, Nate just sort of sat there quietly stewing and eventually stabbing him in the back. So anyway.
Yeah, it's true. And it's stabbing the owner in the back too.
Yep.
We'll find out. Season 3.
Yep.
Jaime, have you seen all of Ted Lasso?
No, I haven't seen season 2.
Dude,
and I was looking at his list. I was looking to see. I've seen some of the items on it. I mean, I've seen Loki and Mythic Quest and Squid Game.
All right. So when we said spoilers earlier, what we meant was we just ruined season 2 for Jaime. So sorry about that, dude.
We didn't say anything. We haven't said anything. But
we may have used the phrase stab in the back.
Now he'll have to watch the entire season to know what we're talking about, right? Because we didn't say anything.
You didn't hear anything.
Hack starring Gene Smart is supposed to be really good. It's one of the ones that's on my sort of list to catch up on.
Yeah, I really want to see Reservation Dogs.
I watched a couple of episodes of Reservation Dogs. It's pretty good. That's on Apple TV as well.
No, it's not. Here in Canada, it's on Disney Plus.
Oh, Disney Plus. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus here. It's a Hulu show. FX on Hulu in the States, but here, here it's on Disney Plus.
There's too much TV now. All of a sudden,
there is entirely too much TV. Yes, there is.
Like I'm way behind on Netflix and blah blah blah. Yeah.
Now that I have Hulu, I'm trying to catch up on some of their shows. I've been watching number 19 here, Pen 15.
I heard that's really funny.
The two middle school girls.
Where's that on in Canada? Crave?
Ooh, I don't even know.
Yeah, Pen 15. It's spelt differently. It's supposed to read differently, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, which brings me, because it reminded me of, go ask your pappy or your grandpappy, whoever has a old school calculator, before we just had an app on our phones, and go type in 5,318,008 and then rotate that wonderful LCD display.
Wait, what number?
Upside down. 5,000.
Yeah.
Sorry, 5,318,008. That is 5318008. And then rotate that calculator so it is upside down.
I feel like I'm in grade 4 again.
Exactly. This.
No, it doesn't work for me.
Well, because you need to have the old school calculator that turns.
You need the old font, right?
The 8s need to be basically like stacked on each other so that they look like bees when they're.
Oh, okay, yeah. This is we never used to put the I in that word when we did that, Jaime, back in the day.
I think you in Canada were probably just a little bit more formal than the the much looser, less formal.
Well, we only needed 2 vowels to make the joke, right? So.
There's a U in there somewhere, Jaime, for no explicable reason. We use a U in there somewhere.
Exactly.
Apparently, Pen 15 is airing on CBC Gem here in Canada. I looked it up.
Oh, okay, so I can watch it for free.
There you go. It's all yours.
Yeah, just like War of the Worlds.
Yeah, interesting list. I think I was thinking about this just the other day, that perhaps it's time for the three of us to
the Spockies,
dust off the Spockies in the next few weeks.
And we missed the Spockies last year because of the hiatus, right?
Yep. So maybe we'll blow the dust off the Spockies. I'll do a little digging and make us a list that we can just consider.
We can vote. Maybe get some of the fans of the show to throw a vote in there too.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking. What do you think, faithful listeners? Do you want the return of the Spockies?
Yeah, all 50 of you. What do you think?
Come on, all 50 of you. We want to hear from you.
I want to hear from 30% of you. Which is the normal response rate.
Yeah.
All right, Jaime, hit us with your best shot.
Well, what we've got here is get your popcorn ready, get boosted up and everything for April 8th, 2022, when Sonic the Hedgehog 2 drops in trailer in theaters.
Did you watch the first one?
I did. I think I saw it on Amazon or something when it was streaming for free.
And
that's with Jim Carrey, right?
It is with Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And James Marsden. It's surprisingly good. I'm not going to say it was like a work of art, but I was like, oh, this actually worked pretty well.
Does James Marsden play Tails or whatever?
No, he played the
hapless human sidekick number 1.
Yes, I can't remember the character's name, which you come here to see Sonic, you don't come here to see the people, right?
Yeah.
This one continues on from that one with the Fox character Tails and the Echidna character of Knuckles joining the fray. Looks like it takes place in Seattle too.
And Knuckles is Knuckles really Idris Elba or something like that?
I recall us talking about that casting.
Yeah.
I got to listen to the voice in the trailer again.
Cool.
Well,
sounds like it could be him.
The unofficial sexiest man in the world.
Not the sexiest man in the world. Yeah.
Not to be confused with Paul Rudd.
Yeah. Or Ryan Gosling, or
any of the dozens and dozens and dozens of men who are sexier than Paul Rudd,
or Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Not that we notice, or not that there's anything wrong with
Not that we're casting shade, Paul. We love you. We genuinely think you're great. You're just not the sexiest man in the world.
Nope. Well, I don't know. I think there's a Ghostbuster out there that might disagree with us. Or whatever. Or dog. What do you call the dog? The devil dog?
Yeah, that's
right.
What
do they call it? Gorgon? No, what do they call it?
No, they the Demigorgons in Stranger Things, and these ones I think they're like hellhounds or something. I don't know.
Hellhounds, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, who's doing the recap?
That would be me. I am here.
Okay. All right. Well, this is the part of the show where we talk about Star Trek something. Of course, we're talking about Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episode 4, All Is Possible. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Well,
with a big twist ending. Wait for it.
Wait for it. Stick around, kids. We're going to get to the whole episode here. Obviously,
you'll never see this one coming.
Spoilers if you haven't seen this. We're going to talk all about this episode, so here we go. Yeah. So we start off.
I was expecting a tar pit monster based on what I expected to happen, but
really, no, they kept that in Lower Decks this year. The episode starts with a little recap, captain's logs. We do a little recap of where everybody's at. Book's in a bad place. Tilly's in a bad place.
Did start date, by the way, 8,000 something?
Oh, I didn't catch it. I didn't write down the number.
Yeah, it's like 86 something thousand.
Yeah,
a long time ago, long time future.
So it sounds like we get a little recap from Burnham, who's doing her captain's log, and she is sort of recapping where sort of everybody is. Book's upset because his family's gone and his planet's gone. Tilly's in a bad place. We see that Stamets is obsessing over what's going on, and she mentions that they are currently still in orbit around Navarre, the planet formerly known as Vulcan. Where they are working with the Science Institute trying to figure out the big space mystery that is changing directions and wiping out planets like Books. We get a little bit of a recap where we left off last episode. We know that the Federation and the Navarre are working on bringing the Navarre back into the Federation, and we find out that the duo of Saru and Burnham are being requested in their formal dress uniforms to go down and sit there silently and look official, because Admiral Vance cannot attend as the Starfleet delegate because he has a Melindian stomach worm, which apparently needs to gestate and birth itself before it can be removed from his stomach. So we check in with Tilly. Tilly is still lost. She's talking about, all the things that we saw in the last episode. She sort of tries to work outside her comfort zone. She goes on the away mission with the to fight the Kawat Milat warrior nun who had lost her direction and was going and stabbing Starfleet officers to death. And she also mentions that she tried all kinds of food she didn't like, including red jelly and rutabagas. And so she ends up being sent on this mission to go to lead these cadets in exercises. They think it's going to be good for her to go and do something to continue to explore and break out of her comfort zone. So we get a little scene with Adira and Gray, and then we find out that Adira is going to come along. So it's going to be Tilly and Adira and a bunch of the first new class in the millennium or century of Starfleet Academy. They're going to go on this training mission. We get to see Kovich, the mysterious agent from the previous season, who it struck me, and I get that this is David Cronenberg and he can do whatever the heck he wants playing this part, but why is he wearing the big horn-rimmed glasses?
I don't know.
Did that not strike you as
900
odd?
Years in the future? Yeah, exactly.
Don't they make a point of saying, like, even in Kirk's time when he puts the glasses on, they're like, well, it's due to this very, very, very rare condition that they can't just fix his eye. Anyway, I just caught it this time. I was wearing them last time and I didn't give it a second thought, and this time I was like, I get that that's a signature Cronenberg look, but it seems strange anyways.
But even Geordi had eyeballs implanted at some point in his career, right?
Yeah. And that was 600 years in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that
maybe
just...
after the burn they lost that technology. I don't know. Or it's the Ontario optometrist strike has affected, Star Trek.
Maybe. Or maybe Mr. Cronenberg himself can't wear contact lenses, and therefore he has to wear his glasses in order to be able to act.
Yeah. Well, it's like Scorsese. He'd be blind without his... He wouldn't be Scorsese without the glasses.
It's true.
Or the eyebrows.
It's true.
Sorry, Jaime, what were you going to say?
I mean, it seems like it could just be future hipsterism, right? Like I specifically elected to wear these.
True.
Oh
True.
My God. Millennials in the future, I just thought we had gotten rid of them. New millennials. So anyway, the whole point of this is that the Kovich points out that these cadets come from very different backgrounds, that they're not used to interacting, and they're having a really tough time bonding.
So perfect group to put Tilly and Adira in.
Absolutely perfect. So they are sent away on this mission. They're going to go do this planetary analysis and they point out that, they're going to go down to this planet until he's trying to get them all hyped up. Oh, we're going down to this cool moon. It's a desert moon, and we're going to do scans, and we might discover a new life form. And isn't this exciting? And
can I raise a concern before we get into the real concern of this show?
Oh, yeah. No, go for it.
So they have been in Starfleet for 2 months, and they're going to send them on an away mission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, in the Boy Scouts, they sent us camping in the woods after 2 months. It's fine.
Yeah, but you had a scout leader who'd been camping in the woods for many years before that.
Yeah, but Tilly's a lieutenant now. Come on.
Oh, that's true. On our way to the captain's chair.
What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, let's find out. So, yeah, my first vibe on this was like, oh my God, she's trapped in a room full of
I thought it was a simulation too, to be honest with you.
Gen Zs, and it just made me want to pull my skin off. But anyways, so she's in this shuttle. They're flying there. She's trying to break the ice with these people. They're all being generally obnoxious and indifferent, which I can't relate to at all working in that kind of environment. So we've got an Orion named Haral. We've got we've got a human named Valsasha. We've got an I don't know what named Gorev, who's got horns on his face. Do you guys recognize that race?
Not as such.
No, I wasn't sure what he was.
They've got a pilot with them who's also a Lieutenant Cullum, whose name we find out at the end. Callum? Yes, Callum. At the end of the episode, we find out his name. And of course, Adira is with them as well. Of course, they're flying along in fine Star Trek fashion. Ba-doom, they get hit with a rogue gamma ray burst, because that's a thing. And they end up careening down. Oh my God, hold on, we're going to crash.
Brace for impact. Grab onto something. Don't bother putting on a seatbelt that we don't have in the future.
So, as our fans will know, we have a Slack. We talk on Slack, and in the moment, I watched this with my son, who of course is our number one fan, and I just said, "Still no seatbelts," and then I was like, a little bit later, the first note comes across, and it's Tim saying, "Seriously, still no seatbelts." And then I was like pulling out maps of seatbelt laws, and it really did become quite the conversation about the efficacy. And I really did like your theory, Jaime. I am going to share it with our audience of perhaps we're in an alternate timeline where the seatbelt laws did not actually take effect, and people didn't realize the value of people not careening through windshields.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that butterfly effect kind of thing, right? Of like,
yeah,
what would have happened had it, just been off at the wrong time to hit the
effect of
zeitgeist.
the Borg going back to the past, right?
That did it. Yeah, somehow eliminated the use of seatbelts in history. So, of course, the ship crashes on this nearby moon, and the pilot, Lieutenant Callum, is dead. He's died. And not only is he dead, but also they've crash landed not where they intended to go, onto this desert moon that Tilly was describing, but to an L-class moon called Kokoitos, and they are not in a position to be found because this apparently system has like 26 moons, and they are in a bit of hot water. And of course, in typical get a bunch of random Starfleet Academy members who've come from different backgrounds together. They all start bickering. So Haral and Gorev start, oh, it's all your fault, and you did this, and you want that, and they all start fighting. Tilly says, listen, you know what? We need to get ourselves back on track. Let's introduce ourselves. She introduces herself. She has Adira introduce themselves, and also, they all go around and share, their backgrounds so we can get a little sense of who they are and what they are. And she feels like that's a positive step in the right direction towards getting themselves the heck off this moon. We go back over to Navarre, and on Navarre, they're having a very formal meeting between the Federation and the delegates from Navarre, trying to sort out the terms of joining the Federation. It seems when they're just about to sign the deal, Navarre pulls a little swapperoo on them and says, actually, we would like the Toronto Blue Jays 2008 AJ Burnett escape clause contract where I'm willing to sign with your team, but I would like to be able to leave after a couple of seasons if I find something better comes along. And so the Navarre basically say, yes, we'll join your Federation, but we want the ability to just leave at a moment's notice with no warning. Just so if we feel like it's not working out for us, we're just going to go.
Yeah.
And of course, Rillick, our previously introduced president of the Federation, says, no, that's not going to work. So we end up with this impasse. So what's going to happen with this? We
also found that she's a Bajoran Cardassian.
Yeah. So I think we found that a little later when they're talking about that. But
okay. Yes.
So we cut back to Discovery, and Book is working with Culber in his role as the ship's counselor, trying to process his grief at losing his family and his planet. Book's still not doing very well. Burnham has told Culber he's not sleeping, and he's really having a tough time. Culber shares a very interesting story about a standing funeral where they pose members of the family in their positions that they want to be remembered in. Talks about his Tio, his uncle, who was a card player, and they were trying to pose him with these cards and kept breaking his fingers off, which is a pretty funny little story. And so we sort of see the foundation of the two of them trying to help Book go through this process of grief. We go back to the negotiations, and the way that the Navarre president Tarina is talking to Saru, and the way that President Rillick is talking to Burnham, both of them are using very careful words, choosing their words carefully in what is clearly an effort to try and engage Saru and Burnham in some political theater and some code speak to try and help them figure out a way to work around this impasse. We go back to the moon, and the shuttle is fried. They cannot take off. They know that the ship is basically a wreck. They can't do anything there, so they figured they're going to have to, go somewhere else. Next thing you know, a scary monster shows up, which Tilly describes as the jellyfish from hell, which is pretty funny. We end up with having to turn off all the power because this thing is drawn to the power signatures of all their stuff, and of course when they do that, they realize they can't stay where they are because they'll freeze to death because they're on a cold planet or a cold moon. So they decide, we're going to have to try and make it to the top of the ridge that they can see in the distance, because that way they could signal the ship they came from and hopefully get their way to safety. Back to Book and Culber. Culber is trying to encourage Book to do a healing ritual that is part of his culture. And of course, he's doing it using programmable matter, not using, of course, naturally occurring things that he would find on his planet. Book is very, very frustrated by this, feeling like he can't actually do it properly because it needs to have these certain ingredients. And Culber keeps saying to him, like, you have to accept that those things will never be at your fingertips again. This is like, you have to change because you can't just keep living in that past. The past can't be rediscovered. It's gone. Like your planet's gone.
Is that a COVID lesson by any chance?
It is very.
Okay.
This whole we'll talk about it when we get to the end of this, but this whole episode has a lot of what we've all been going through this last little while. Again, accepting loss and change. We go back to Navarre. Saru and Tarina have a nice conversation where Tarina reveals that the forces inside of her government, including the Vulcan isolationists, are very leery of rejoining the Federation, and that's why they asked for this clause, and that's why she had to bring it up, because she had to keep them appeased in order to keep her station and keep her government functioning. And she and Saru continue having this sort of, kind of flirty thing that they've had going on for a couple episodes. Clearly they're kind of digging each other's vibe, which is interesting. And then we go over to Rillick and Burnham. Same thing. They're talking about, like, what can we do? How do we figure this out? Go back to the moon. On top of the jellyfish from hell, all of a sudden there's these cracks coming from the sky of spider lightning. The crew of cadets are quite all over each other, being, pretty snarky, racist, prejudging each other based on their appearances, and in that moment, some of the spider lightning hits the ground, and Adira finds herself stuck in the ice. They use a programmable matter rope, which is a really cool trick, to work as a team and sort of tug of war her out of there and save her, which is kind of cool. And and they end up having a little sort of moment where they sort of have a breakthrough where, they use teamwork to make the dream work, as the old expression goes. And Gorev talks about, how horrible his existence was and why he'll never trust Harald because of the treatment that his family received at the hands of the, it's called Emerald Chain.
Orion, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Harald actually reveals that, he was not or I think it's actually Adira reveals.
Adira reveals his dad was...
Yeah, that Harald's dad was actually, an activist and was a political prisoner, but he was the one who tried to sort of negotiate the terms with the Federation to try and stop the kinds of behavior that the Orion Syndicate was doing. Mm-hmm. And so we have a little breakthrough.
I want to point out that they're being threatened by these giant spiders from hell. They're just attacking them. They're going to get here in a certain second, but they spend 2 or 3 minutes just standing in a circle,
having a conversation, working some stuff out. It's good. It's good. There's a moral in there somewhere. Yeah,
that basically, people like that are going to get killed by spider monsters while they discuss it.
Yes, probably that. We go back to Navarre. They have their
Canadian. It's like Canada. Let's have a committee. We'll have a committee.
We'll evaluate it, and meanwhile,
we'll do a report.
Yeah. So we go back to Navarre. They're having their negotiations. They reach a compromise. The compromise proposed by Burnham is that they set up an independent committee to review the membership of all groups, not just the Navarre, and that she volunteers herself as the sort of leader of this group because she is not only...
And Captain Kirk is dead, so she's got to be her.
That's absolutely right. She's got to be the person because she's not only a citizen of Navarre, having been raised there, of course, by Sarek, but also
900 years ago.
Yeah. And also because she is a member of the Federation as the Starfleet captain. So she sort of finds herself as the perfect person. And of course, they all say that is an acceptable bargain. So hooray. It seems to solve things. Back to the Ice Moon, Tilly gets them all up to the top of the ridge that they were aiming for. They want to beam out, but they know it's going to take at least 60 seconds for the response, and that someone is going to have to distract the jellyfish monsters. There's 2 of them. And so she volunteers to go down and do that while they get themselves beamed off. And of course, in a heroic play, they all work together to save themselves and save Tilly, who's almost gets smoked by this thing, but ends up getting beamed out at the last second. Huzzah! We go back to the. I think, are we supposed to be on the ship now? The ship that saves them, but or are they all the way back at Federation headquarters?
They're back at Federation. They're back at the Academy.
Yes. Okay.
Which I thought was a loading dock, to be honest.
That's what I thought too. Like, it was kind of a weird setup. But anyways, they go back there, and Kovic says to them, says to Tilly, hey, that was some pretty good work. Looks like you really got through to them. They're all pals. We could use somebody like that here as a teacher at the Starfleet Academy. And Tilly sort of says, Adira then comes over and they say, actually, I've had really tough time making friends in the past, and I feel like I've actually done that too. So they have their moment of revelation in this as well. Back to Navarre. Navarre officially back in the Federation. Hooray. They explain what the fate of Javini, the rogue warrior nun, will be, that working alongside Burnham's mom, they are going to try and sort of rehabilitate her, which is kind of nice closure from last episode as to what would they do after she stabbed to death a Starfleet official
and a nun. Oh no, the nun got killed by mercenaries.
Yeah, same circumstance, I suppose. Yeah. Nice moment between Rillick and Burnham, where Rillick sort of says, I knew you'd be the right person for the job. You did a really good job of sort of reading between the lines and working through your politics here. And Burnham sort of says, thanks for having faith in me, but next time maybe talk to me first. Maybe don't play games, because we could probably get things solved a little faster. Back to Book and Culber, they have a nice moment where Book actually does do this this sort of therapeutic exercise using the programmable matter, and seems to have sort of gotten over a little bit closer to the healing that he needs to have after the loss of all his family and his planet. And then we go to Tilly and Burnham, who have this lovely little conversation inside of Tilly's quarters, which, of course, was both of their quarters for the previous number of seasons, and where they're talking about, where Tilly's at and sort of sharing the adventure of what they just went through. And Tilly sort of says, I've really been searching for something. I haven't been able to figure it out. I was terrified when I got my lieutenant pips, and I realized that, I'd lost my mom and that she was never going to be seeing me like this. And I started questioning why I'm doing this. And in the end, she says, I'm taking that job with Starfleet Academy and I'm out of here. So she hops on a ship and poof,
gone.
She's gone. Sylvia Tilly is not.
And Mary Wiseman.
Well,
we might have Mirror Universe Tilly back, or Captain Tilly.
If you'll notice, I did put an article link right below our show notes here from Decider.com, because I found myself thinking that's kind of an odd moment, and of course they did a good job, but it wasn't like it was out of the blue.
Well,
they certainly did a good job,
right?
Pardon me?
Yeah, and there wasn't a tar pit.
And there wasn't a tar pit. They didn't just send her flying and kick her out. Although I think I have to say the Denise Crosby thing, I think, was a far more sort of acrimonious departure. So they were like, and you're getting eaten by a tar pit. Yeah. This Decider.com article has a confirmation they spoke to somebody at Paramount, and apparently Mary Wiseman is not leaving the show yet. So we will see her again at some point this season. Whether or not she's leaving after the season, I don't know. I know she's a guest on The Ready Room with Will Wheaton in this week's episode. I have not had a chance to watch it yet. So
yeah, I saw that's why I realized the episode was going to be about her, because I saw a teaser for that. But yeah, so I mean, maybe she'll go into a transporter and get cloned, and there'll be two of her.
Well, this is very Doctor Who season 4.
Very Lower Decks too.
Yeah, true. I don't know. Again, to me, I will say, at least I felt like on this show, they have done a good job of not just doing these sort of one and done emotional arcs. And it's kind of satisfying in that way. Neither Book's grief was sort of like done and over with, nor, Culber's feelings after coming back in previous seasons, nor,
Stamets, yeah.
Yeah, Stamets. Like, they do a good job of not just being like, oh, and I'm fine next week. Like, they're doing a good job. And so this is a natural extension of the storyline that they have been sort of carefully laying the track out all season 4 with Tilly. So it's not at all out of the blue where they're like, and now she's gone. Like, we saw this arc building towards this. So there is some logic to it. It's not just random. But it is still, obviously bittersweet. In the short term, at least, we're not going to see any more of Mary Wiseman, who, of course, is a freaking delight. And yeah, so obviously this article does mention that she's coming back at some point, but it's still strange to think of Discovery without Tilly.
But I'm glad that you had this here, because I was kind of wondering. I was like, is she not coming back? I was like, what's the casting situation? But yeah, kind of interesting to see, because her character is a little different. We've talked about some characters like, oh no, here's this character that's the background character. They suddenly get a lot of love. They're probably dying. That wasn't, I don't think, going to be the case with her. If it's like, oh, she's getting a lot of attention, maybe she's going to say goodbye for now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, fight zombies or something.
We talked earlier about this episode. This whole season is obviously, there's a lot of metaphorical reference to what the world has gone through this past couple of years. The unknown, COVID, all this kind of stuff.
After the burn, you mean?
Yep. This one, it occurred to me in the moment, but I thought I'm going to give credit to Decider here. They have a reference to The Great Resignation, which Jaime referenced earlier, talking about this episode. The number of workers who, are just sort of realizing when they finally had a moment to stop for the first time, they're realizing that their lives and careers were on paths they weren't happy with. So we've seen this happen on relationships. We've seen this happen in workplaces. The number of people who have decided I don't want to be killing myself working this thankless job for the rest of my life. I'm going to finally take the moment to reflect that I've had during this pandemic and do something different. That's the same journey that we see her on here, that she's sort of taking that moment of, I was on this thing. I feel like I've always been on this treadmill going towards the captain's chair, and only now, when things have finally calmed down a bit, do I find myself thinking, is this what I really want to do? And it's just a beautiful, clear metaphor for where a lot of people are headspace-wise right now of, hey, I have nothing but time now to reflect on my job, my relationships, my friendships, my living circumstances, my political views, whatever it is, and start to question those things. And, in our world right now, people are, changing jobs like crazy because a lot of people are very dissatisfied with the kind of lot that they found themselves with and are trying to make a change, and I guess that's the allegory they're going with Tilly here. It's smartly told, and again, good on Decider for calling that out very overtly. Alex Zalbin, the author of this piece, so I'll give credit to Alex.
All right.
Because as a former writer, I think people need credit.
Yeah, attribution.
Yep,
definitely.
What you guys have any sort of big moments from this one? Things that you enjoyed or didn't enjoy? I did like the sort of the eyebrow wiggle stuff going on between Tarina and Saru as well.
I mean, there was a bit of, the sort of the naughty, head nodding, and, like they literally had them sitting on opposite sides of the room, and the president would turn to, some knowing person who would give them a nod, yes or no kind of deal. Which doesn't sound, sounds too played, and I don't know. It seems like they kind of wrap things up in the traditional Star Trek 40 minutes in, and done kind of deal, and yet you get these, like it seemed like at the end of the episode last week that Book was all done with his grief, and now he's decided he's not really done with it, like he was in a better place at the end of it. Tilly was, Tilly we could sort of see still had issues to resolve, which I guess is where this was going, right? Going to the Federation. How did Kovich end up being in charge of the academy? Like, wasn't he?
Well, he's clearly doing Section 31 Academy. He's already recruiting.
Yeah, because he was in the sort of weird guy group right when they first came, right?
Yeah, they never really
wasn't he interviewing everybody when they first arrived?
Yes, yeah, and he seemed very Section 31-y again. He had the black suit, and he was acting very weird. Although that's just David Cronenberg, as anybody who knows him. Yeah. But I thought it was an interesting twist to have him suddenly be in charge of shaping young minds.
Yeah. Kind of interesting why they would have David Cronenberg play that role, too.
Well, I mean, if David Cronenberg wants to be on your show, you put David Cronenberg on your show.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, but we've seen other famous people have, stars have cameos and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Over the years.
Yeah, of course.
Usually in a helmet or something, and or, makeup. And
well, yeah, I think it's the Christian Slater in Star Trek 6 is the all-timer of, like, he gets one line where he's like, "Sir, we need you on the bridge."
And he's in the dark.
Yeah. You just kind of hear his voice and see his silhouette, right? Yeah. Anyway, exactly. I thought it was a good episode. Like they kind of needed a little sort of state of the union kind of thing for these characters.
I mean, the whole away mission was ridiculous.
Like, well, I mean, it was very dead. It was very Star Trek tropey.
I mean, they're technically so dead. And even getting up that ridge, like what makes them think they can get up the ridge where native creatures of the planet couldn't get up faster? Opposable thumbs and good winter boots. Yes.
I will say, I'd like to, in retrospect, I would like to give...
I did notice they were wearing hats, though, in the winter, which I thought
they were wearing
that
hoods.
Doesn't happen.
They were wearing hoods. And I was going to say, the one thing I think we need to shout out here is the costume design team on Discovery this season needs a freaking standing O. Those costumes, from the formal uniforms that they're wearing, to all the costumes that the delegates are wearing, to the winter outfits that they're wearing on that moon. The costume design has been out of this world this year. It's been so good. Like, this is the sharpest dressed Trek show ever. They look great. They look great. Like, Sonequa Martin Green looks like a queen in everything they've put her in this season.
Yeah.
Like, even Saru was rocking the formal uniform today and looking really slick.
Yeah, it's interesting. No stretchy pants or sweatshirts, though.
No, I guess that's where they missed the mark on the whole pandemic thing.
They are wearing pants, yeah.
They're wearing proper pants.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's turn our attention to Hawkeye Season 1, Episode 4. So,
shall we?
We got another... last week's episode was the big car chase and was very sort of dynamic. So, of course, you got to take it back down a notch. And in a 6-episode season, where we got the first 2 episodes at once... Of course, there has to be the downbeat where, you sort of set things back. So this is the set things back episode where, things kind of go a little off. We left last episode with Clint with a sword to his throat. He makes nicey nice with the parents and the swordsman and gets a talking to from Kate's mom saying basically like, don't drag my daughter into your world. And in spite of that, they end up, having this, lovely sort of drunken night with Pizza Dog where they hang out and they drink and, teach each other tricks and really kind of bond. And then we end up with this mission to go and steal back this mysterious watch, which we saw in the original first episode. And we really hadn't had a clue as to what the watch is about. And so
maybe it was Ronan's watch.
Well, yeah, we still have this MacGuffin of a watch. We don't know what's up with the watch. We knew about the sword, we knew about the outfit, but we found out in this one that the watch could reveal somebody's identity, and therefore it can't be revealed. So they break into Maya's apartment to try and steal the watch, and then all hell breaks loose, where we end up with a 4-way fight going on between...
Well, they don't know it's Maya's apartment at first.
Well, they don't at first, although when the lights start flashing, like Hawkeye figures it out, right? Because he's like, oh, it's an alarm for people who are hearing impaired, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, we end up with this sort of raging fight across the building and across the rooftops between Maya and Kate and Hawkeye and a masked foe. And spoilers, this is your last warning, spoilers.
Yeah, I saw that coming. It was,
oh yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah. I said to my son, like, I think we'd already talked about the fact that Yelena was going to show up at some point. So of course, the person in the mask was Yelena Belova, who is of course the little sister of Natasha Romanov, sister in quotes. In this circumstance, it was pretty telegraphed by the fact that they brought Natasha's name up like 3 times, and they showed her in a flashback before this person showed up. So they really did like lay the groundwork for, of course you're going to see Yelena in this episode. So the episode basically wraps with this big fight, and then Clint saying to Kate, things have gotten really serious here. We're in deep doo-doo. If somebody's called in the Black Widow assassin, he calls her, then things have really gone off the rails, and you need to get the hell out of here. You're no longer safe, and I'm done hanging out with you. Mm-hmm. So, of course, that's the sort of downbeat as we head towards the final 2 episodes. We leave with the 2 of them, on the outs. Although we also we know that Kate has the watch in her pocket, so it's all going to have to come back around.
Well, and so in the sit down with the parents, we find out that the father is, or the stepfather, future father is corrupt and is involved with the tracksuit guys, right? Yep. But the company he's checking on, is that the name of the company's the wife's company, or she works for him? No. So the computer that Kate's mom has is part of Paladin Security, that the place that she works. Okay, right. And but the Sloan Inc. Incorporated or whatever. Yeah, Sloan Inc. is actually where Jack works, and he's actually the owner, and it's actually a front for the tracksuits. So she doesn't necessarily know that Jack is bad, although keep watching. Yeah. So So again, another strong episode. The chemistry is good between the lead actors. The performances are really good. Pizza Dog still steals every scene he's in. I still like the show a lot. I'm really enjoying it. I'm excited that it's coming along well, and I'm excited that there's only 2 more episodes left, and I'm excited that they're still sort of building towards that, like right before Christmas
final episode, how's it going to end kind of stuff. But it's also interesting that, we're now starting to see these shows building off each other. So this is the first sign of interconnectivity between the shows too, because now we've got Yelena coming off of Black Widow, tied in with the Valentina, Val, don't call her Val, the Countess, who has recruited her and recruited the U.S. agent. Now we see her attacking Hawkeye, which ties into the scene from the end of Black Widow, but also ties into Captain America and the Winter Soldier. So it's starting to come together a little bit. They're starting to see a little bit of the glue between these different shows.
We seem to have Jessica Jones' apartment in there too.
Yeah. Right? So it's interesting to see how all these things are sort of layering together and building a bit more of a tapestry as we continue to weave the universes.
Or whatever they call it, right?
What's that?
They did mention the blip today, or whatever they call it. The blip?
Yes, the snapping, the blip, the
snapping, yeah.
Yep. I mean, what got any impressions from this one?
I enjoyed it because it has a little bit of a different pace, as you mentioned, from the other episodes. You get a little bit of something different. It is connective tissue. It sets up Pew back as the Widow replacement, right? I was racking my brain thinking, should I know this watch thing? I was like, what am I forgetting something from the many series and movies? But I don't think it has been explained precisely, right? It's still kind of speculative.
Yeah. I think it has not been revealed what the meaning of the watch is. I think it's interesting too. I never got the impression through the movies that we've seen so far that Clint's wife was really connected to his world until these last couple episodes when they're having conversations on the phone and she's like, well, Ronan, the watch, like she seems to clearly know his world. And I guess we're supposed to assume that he's an open book with his wife and shares all his secrets and everything else. But it's interesting because I always assumed that his sort of work life, if you will, and his home life were a little more separate.
I have not as much of an idea from the sources that we've seen before as to whether that was something that was regularly there for the character or if that's something that happened after his family came back.
Yeah, and maybe that's the circumstance we're supposed to, get that maybe he's turned over a new leaf since they came back of just being more present and more engaged with his family or whatever that is. But
right.
Yeah, but interesting.
Yeah, I wonder where the people went when they went to the blip. We never have talked about that, have we?
Yeah, it's funny because Peter Parker references it when he comes back in Endgame. He basically says, we were fighting on that planet and then I must have hit my head because I woke up and, these guys were like, oh my God, we got to go. There's a big fight going on. So he basically makes it sound like he doesn't remember the experience of dying or being dead, just basically being alive and then waking up again.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like they really haven't addressed it in a fulsome way.
Well, they sort of did in WandaVision because people came back that weren't around, and because doesn't the other lady that's in that show, wasn't she one of the people that disappeared and came back? The other, the main character. The FBI
Monica. Yeah. But again, I can't remember if they talk about her experience so much, or if it's just she was gone and now she's back. I can't recall that there's much dialogue about her experience.
Yeah, because they don't really die. Like it's not like they went through a death thing and then they've been resurrected. It's like they just incorporated.
I don't know, man. If I could turn you to ash and you come back, I think you've died and come back. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, like where does your brain go? Where does your
check inside the dust mop?
Yeah. Anyway,
little flakes of brain everywhere.
Yeah. All right. Can we move to the watch list?
Watch list.
All right, I'm up first. Very interesting. I just discovered this is from a year ago on Vanity Fair. They did a couple of these videos where they talked to a few people, and in one case they talked to Chris Hadfield. I've seen a couple of things with him recently, but this one, the one that caught my attention, was Chris Hadfield reviews space movies.
Yeah.
And so he does a quick review of Gravity and Passengers, Armageddon, Martian, Interstellar, First Man, Hidden Figures, Ad Astra, 2001: Space Odyssey, WALL-E, and Sunshine. And so it's interesting because he talks about the the reality. Like we've talked about Gravity before. I think maybe you and I have talked about Gravity, but Gravity is a really interesting movie. Like from the point of view of like they kind of put all of the sort of space technologies that are currently in use out there, but he's like, oh my God, they would never, a spacewalk would never be like this. Like, and they wouldn't be panicking and they wouldn't be yelling stuff into the microphone and stuff because they practice error scenarios all day long and then some, right? So, and the George Clooney character whipping around the space station, that wouldn't happen. You just don't go out for a joyride, no matter who you are, right, sort of thing, right? So he had his really long review of that one, and just totally not what space travel is like. And I've read his book, and he talks about being in the Soyuz capsule, and when you pull away from the space station, you go at like sub light speed, like you just barely move away from the thing because you don't want any kind of wake or whatever to damage the fragile nature of the space station. And yet, like there's a whole lot of unbelievable things happening in Gravity, he said, right?
Agreed.
Passengers. I mean, I still love it. It's a great movie. I love watching the movie, but yeah, it's totally unplausible. But the sets are amazing. But the Passengers, he says the one thing they got right was when she's in the swimming pool, that when they lose gravity, the whole thing turns into a big giant bubble, and Jennifer Lawrence is stuck inside trying to swim to the edge, and he's like, but how would you know which way is up when you're in a water bubble? Mm-hmm. But the other thing he said, like, the way they simulate gravity is they spin the ship, right? And he says there's no way that ship would have just stopped spinning.
Yeah.
Newtonian physics is once you start something in motion, it just keeps going until something affects it to make it stop, right? So it would, like, there's no way you could have put brakes on that ship. So that was one unplausible thing. Armageddon, he says, I hadn't thought about Armageddon since I walked out of the theater when I first saw it. He's a complete joke. Like, I'm just not even going to qualify it with anything. The Martian, he said, was interesting, and the way that Watney builds, grows the potatoes and stuff like that. But he did have a few issues with that one as well. Interstellar, he thought was interesting, but he found the whole fourth dimension part in the middle of the thing, where Matt McConaughey does the sort of time travel stuff, that he finds completely unbelievable.
Yeah.
First Man, like in the very beginning of the First Man, Neil Armstrong's in this supersonic rocket jet plane, and he's flying, and it's like shaking like crazy, and like there's all kinds of like turbulence and everything. He's like, no. He says, first of all, when you're traveling at that high in the atmosphere and you're traveling at that speed, there is no vibration. There is no shaking of the ship. It's just like you're just like a bullet, right? Mm. And he says, as they're moving up in the atmosphere, he's moving higher into the atmosphere, and as he's moving into the atmosphere, the nose cone starts to glow red. Well, the nose cone would only glow red if there was air molecules banging up against the nose. He says, as you move up, there's like practically no air,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So you found that completely unbelievable. Hidden Figures, he says, was one of the best movies he's seen because it totally, was bang on about the way that these women did the human computers did the figuring out and all that kind of stuff, and he really enjoyed that one. I forget what he said about Ad Astra, but we'll just keep moving.
He said, "This is dull. I don't want to watch anymore." Yeah,
no, he went on for quite a bit about that one. I wasn't really paying attention, to be honest with you. But 2001, he really liked that one. Can't remember what he did. Oh, the gravity stuff he thought was kind of interesting with the Velcro shoes. He says, in reality, everything on the ship is covered in Velcro, like the space station. So like, yeah, that pen floating around is kind of unrealistic, but. And the last one, Wall-E, Wall-E was good, but I can't remember what he said about that one. But yeah, it was just I mean, but it was like the comments about Gravity, which people think is a great movie, and Armageddon. I don't know who thinks Armageddon's a great movie.
To be fair, as a movie, it's perfectly fine. It's as what it's supposed to be, which is just this like rollicking adventure with a bunch of goofballs flying through space, cowboys in space. It's perfectly fine. It's just nonsensically and unscientific.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you can put that in your pocket for a while, there's nothing wrong with the movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's only one thing worth watching in that movie, and it's not in space. But anyway,
is it a young Liv Tyler? Because that would be my vote.
That's what I was going for.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. So, and it's funny because I was watching the Tina Fey and Amy Poehler introduction to the the Golden Globes that they did. They did 3 years in a row, and I can't remember which one it was, but one of them they talk about Gravity, and they said like Gravity is a movie about which proves that George Clooney would do anything he could possibly to not be on the screen with a woman the same age as him.
There you go. Harsh but fair.
Yep. Anyway, moving on to Jaime.
Yeah, this isn't so much a watch list item as it is a holiday, stocking stuffer time item.
What?
So Build-A-Bear, if you're familiar with that franchise of toy shops, has a tie-in with the new Matrix movie, and they have their Matrix Bear, which looks actually kind of cool. It's not cheap, so if you want to go all in on this cool-looking bear, it's $51. You get the bear by itself for $29. I suppose you get the clothes just by themselves for some reason for $22. If you add that together, it's $51. But it looks pretty.
You already have
cool.
The bear. Who knows, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could just put your clothes, but the Matrix green screen code that's imprinted on this bear actually makes it look pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. $51 US for a teddy bear.
I honestly have never gone to Build-A-Bear, so I don't know if that's unreasonable for their pricing.
Yeah, I have no sense of it.
Yeah, neither do I.
I think your granddaughter would love to go to Build-A-Bear.
Yeah. How about your niece?
I don't know about her. All right, my watch list item is back to our conversation about Paramount Plus. So I had been seeing all this promotion around, and we talked in a previous episode about the South Park mini movies that are going up on Paramount Plus. So they'd already done one that there's lots of memes going around. It's sort of set in a future. The South Park characters are older, and it was the first of a two-part kind of deal. And so they announced this week that the second part, which is called South Park Post-COVID Part 2, is coming on December 16th to Paramount Plus. Here in Canada, for the past number of years, new episodes of South Park have been airing on a channel called Much. Much is Canada's equivalent, more or less, to MTV. Mm-hmm. And they do have some exclusive shows, often content from other places, syndicated stuff from the United States. So I thought to myself, I wonder how this is going to play out, because they keep hyping this as a Paramount Plus exclusive piece of content. So I had been checking back in to see if perhaps this was going to pop up on Much, as all previous South Park content has, and it has not. So I thought, that's unfortunate. And so I thought, I had seen a promotion on the iTunes store here in Canada saying, sign up for Paramount Plus. And so I thought, okay, is it available here in Canada? Sure enough, it is available here in Canada. It's $5.99 a month. You do get a free trial, so you can try it out. But if you want to watch these South Park things here in Canada, it seems like you have one legal choice to do so, which is to say you need to get the Paramount Plus app if you want to watch these exclusive Paramount Plus South Park pieces of content. Which is not great, because as we've talked about in the past, now we're back into Pokemon country of gotta catch them all. You need to get yet another service if you are a fan of this very long-standing, previously free with your cable subscription content, now is exclusive content on a different channel. And it really does bring me back to what I think we talked about in a previous episode, which is, I wonder what this means for the future of Star Trek here in Canada. If we are going to get to a point where we may see subsequent seasons of things or subsequent pieces of content migrating. I gotta admit, the journalist in me, who I thought had long been put to sleep, was rumbling this week as I was thinking, should I send an email to somebody at CTV Sci-Fi on behalf of the podcast and ask the terms of their contract? Do they have in perpetuity right of first refusal on all Star Trek content with, working with previous existing contracts with Paramount? Or I'm really curious. I'm curious to know if we're going to find ourselves in the same boat that so many people around the world is, which is to say, if you want to watch this, you need Paramount Plus.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think. Well, I mean, my experience is if you wait long enough, it'll eventually come on something you can watch it on. Unless you're that desperate to watch it, right?
Yeah, it depends on what it is, though. And again, it depends on the avenue. You know, more and more, these things are going to be contained on these platforms because that's the only motivation that they have for getting people there, right?
Yeah.
You know, think about, you know, Jaime, you've talked about this before. The lure for you often in whether or not you're going to subscribe to something is not, hey, there's a new thing. It's, hey, there's a new thing, and there's also a month or 2 months worth of other content that I want to also digest, and therefore I'll put my money down because I can devour it all during the window of the thing I want to see and then close it out again.
Yeah, precisely. That's why I had waited for Hulu for such a long time. I said, okay, well, we've been collecting stuff to watch, like the, you know, most recent seasons of The Handmaid's Tale, and I said, all right, well, I'll subscribe for The Orville come March, and then I got this good deal on Black Friday, so now I'm just watching stuff like Pen 15 and One Punch Man Season 2, which I hadn't realized was a Hulu exclusive. So it's kind of the, you know, you pick what you want. If you want to be right there, you know, as everybody else is tweeting their memes, you got to pony up and pay the most expensive price of month by month, as you know, these series tend to be at least, you know, 2-ish months worth of subscription price. Or you can just go the cheap route and wait until, you know, there's a threshold, whatever your personal threshold, and say, okay, this month, you know, probably something like December when a lot of people take holidays, I'm just going to binge the heck out of everything 24 hours a day, just catching up on all these series for the one, you know, $5.99 or $8.99 or whatever it is.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, we this is a topic well worn by us over the last 100+ episodes, but where's the tipping point? You know, even as it is now, I find it hard to keep track of the number of services that are sort of at my fingertips between my cable subscription, which I keep primarily because I'm a fan of sports and I do like to watch some live sports. But between Netflix, Crave, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, there's a lot of content, and of course YouTube, which is just the you know, fire hose of content. There's so many different places that you can pull in content. Now, we're kind of in a lucky-ish circumstance up here, which is a rarity, but you know, Hulu gets fed through Disney Plus for us here through Star, so we kind of get a little bit of a cheat code on that one. And we do, through Crave, we get HBO content primarily, although we found out like Aquaman's the exception to that one. For some reason, that's on a different service. But all things being equal, we have access to most of the content in different forms. But then you add Paramount Plus onto that, and you know, some of these other, you know, Peacock, I don't know if that's available here yet, but we're seeing even more fragmentation. What's the breaking point? Like, what's the point at which you're just like, how bad do I want to see X? Like, I can't see myself giving up on Trek. So if next month we got an announcement, you know what, CTV Sci-Fi is, you know, giving back the rights, it's all going on Paramount Plus, I guess I'm in for $6 a month.
Really? I
think so. I mean, when they're churning out essentially, like, now they're doing 5 different Star Trek series over the course of a year, and they're covering, you know, I might obviously let it lapse if there was nothing on for a duration, but you know, Jaime, I think you've said they're doing a pretty good job of keeping other good content on there as well.
Yeah, it certainly helps to have year-round Trek, and then fill in with other things for, you know, non-Trek fans. And this is also why, at a broader level, everybody wants to create their own Game of Thrones equivalent, right? Everybody wants the must-have series, and fantasy-based series seem to be the one that people have chosen to see. You know, HBO is going back into that well with its Game of Thrones prequel. Amazon's got its Wheel of Time that it's trying to do. Could have sworn there's something else that I'm forgetting that was who was this? Apple has something that I think we had identified in this show as being a Game of Thrones equivalent. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I remember us talking about it. I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, because we've got Wheel of Time, we've got Game of Thrones. There's the Amazon Prime is also doing the Lord of the Rings, and then HBO Max is doing the Dune spin-off stuff theoretically. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that people are trying to sort of build these must-see, must-have pieces around, right?
And I think that's why it's pretty interesting to be someone like Disney, where you're just sitting on this, you know, Smaug like gold mine of of content, and they've gotten pretty good about getting more Star Wars stuff out, getting more Marvel stuff out, but they've got a ton of that stuff already. And then it's like, oh, do you got kids? Great, we got everything that you ever watched as a kid and that they ever will watch as a kid.
Yeah, and on top of that, the IP that they still haven't even really tapped into as far as new content, Aliens, Predator, Indiana Jones, like there's so many big tentpole things that they're going to have at their fingertips to churn out on top of the Star Wars and the Marvel and the Pixar and the Disney properties, and like they are just the most set. Whereas Netflix and some of the other shows, or other services rather, are going to have to do a better job of creating unique IP. Whereas as Disney's taking the opposite approach of spending, I mean, to acquire all those companies, including the Fox acquisition, which brought them a ton more, The Simpsons and, Family Guy and all that other stuff. What was the final cost on that? Like $60 billion? Now, they're going to make it back out of our pockets, but they are just going to have this, as we talked about it. Speaking of a fire hose, I mean, this is bigger than that worth of content that they can just spray at you. Like I think we talked about it before, but the Disney Plus subscription now is the absolute must for a genre fan now. Like, you just cannot not have it. Between all the different IP, the Star Wars shows, the Marvel shows, all the other content that they have on there and that they're developing, I can't imagine not having it anymore. And I can't imagine the future where I wouldn't have it.
They've kept it cheap too. Looks like it's $7.99 a month or $79 per year if you pre-purchase the entire year.
Yeah, they raised it here. I think I had locked in at something for the first 2 years that I had it that was pretty darn cheap. But I think for the third season, they did raise the rates. It's a pretty reasonable. It's cheaper than Netflix by a margin. But
yeah. As an aside, one thing I had discovered, because I went on business travel last week, and granted, this isn't all a completely fair comparison because we've got different tiers of stuff, but I tried to fill up my phone with as much content as I could to watch on the airplane rides. And Netflix, I don't pay for the lowest tier, so I don't know at what tier you can download episodes, but Netflix worked pretty well for me. Disney Plus you can download. That's how I watched Hawkeye, because they drop it at like midnight. I don't know if it's Pacific or Eastern or what time zone. HBO Max, I guess since I'm paying for the Max, I'm dubbed worthy of being able to download episodes. Prime Video lets you download episodes. I don't think Paramount Plus does at the tier that I'm paying for, the cheapo tier. So if you go on a lot of plane rides, I guess get the ad free. And Hulu also does not let me download episodes at the cheap tier. I would have to pay for the ad-free tier. So that's something I hadn't really considered during the pandemic as a differentiator for which tier am I going to use. But as things start to open up, might be something to think about.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm not quite at the breaking point yet, but as you guys said earlier in this episode, the content, it just keeps coming, and now you're finding yourself with just not enough time in the day. You do wonder if it is a better strategy to just sort of alternate years on some of these things, Okay, 2022 is going to be a Netflix year. 2023 is going to be a Disney Plus year.
It's not quite that. It's not quite that much stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, but it honestly, when you see the volume of IP that's coming, it does feel like that sometimes, where you're just like, damn, how am I going to work this in and still have any other life other than just watching appointment television? Yeah. And on that note...
Yeah, I guess that's it for another week. So I guess if people want to get in touch with you, Jonathan, where would they find you?
You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews.
All right, and Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithTheHair.
And once again, my name is Timitra, Timmitra. On the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. So until next time, we'll say goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
So I want to know, Jaime, did you listen to the whole episode of last week?
I went to the very end because I knew that you guys would either loop me in, which is why I recorded it the way I did, or you would troll people, including me, and put in the segment. And I'm like, all right, Tim, this is so you can loop it in. Bye. Right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't. That was the only part of it. Like sometimes I cut like dead air out, but because actually when I was going to process the software kept saying to me, you got like a minute of dead air here, right? There's like a secret hidden track at the end of the CD, right?
Yeah, I had this package delivery come, and then by the time I got back and calmed down the dog and everything, I was like, "What? These guys are already done?" It's like Zoom was already processing the meeting. What's going on?
Yeah, did you, Jonathan? Did you hear it as well, or
no? I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet this week. We were busy scrambling getting the other podcast I work on out the door this week. New episode came live today.
Yeah. So that was a normal-ish delivery, as I mentioned to you all. Like, I think these services just, they push people so hard that I think if it goes beyond normal hours, you're going to do it. And I have had some claim to be delivered and actually get delivered stupidly early in the morning, which I speculate is before they start the normal shift. But then I realized that that wasn't the case here. This is a normal delivery. But actually here, Amazon Prime Now has windows all the way to 10 p.m. to midnight. That was not the case here, but actually could have had one all the way to midnight for a delivery. If you wanted stuff now, they sure will bring it to you now.
Yeah, well, it's been like that. Like I've been finding that even with work stuff. We use couriers and they use day couriers and they don't show up at before 5. They show up at like 7:30 at night, sort of thing. Weird.
Yeah, I find, because I'm working here all the time, I find that I'm doing mostly okay. I think the latest I've seen one is like 8 o'clock. It's not too bad. But yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Well, it's going to get worse over the next couple of weeks too. Right?
Oh yeah. They'll be running pretty ragged, those folks.
Yeah.
Leave some candy canes by the door or something for them.
Yeah. Come for the COVID.
Yeah, that's right. I'll leave a thing of hand sanitizer and some candy canes.
Yeah, that's the worst part, when I have to answer the door, and that's pretty much the only thing that comes to the door these days is shipping people, right? Yep. When they come to pick stuff up and you don't have time to put your mask on, just kind of stretch your arm out as far as it'll go.
Yeah.
I've taken to having a clean mask just hanging there on the door.
Yeah, we have ours by the door too, but it's just a matter of you open the door because sometimes they just want to hand you something and run, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or actually, because we have a door cam, right? I see people just walk up and throw the package on the dock, not even step up onto the deck, right? So
yeah, I found myself in the unfortunate position this week where I was here by myself because of everybody else was at work or school, and the doorbell rang at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I went downstairs and saw a parcel delivery, and it was my Christmas present from my wife.
Nice.
In a completely obvious what it is in the box. And the guy says, "Hey, can you sign for this?" And I was like, "I'll sign for this." And I was like, "Okay, can't unsee this now." So that's kind of a drag, but yeah. But I'm still going to act surprised on Christmas morning.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I bought a few things. I just hand them to Carol. Say, "This is for me."
Yeah.
I'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
See it later.
Yeah. Actually, Xavier did that to me. We went out. He and I just had sort of a father-son day out, maybe a month ago, and we were puttering around doing some errands. I actually came upon some old vinyl that I wanted to go pick up, and so we went and puttered around. We went to a couple old vintage video game spots, and he found a couple old games that he wanted. And he said, "Here, this is on my Christmas list now." And I was like, "Okay, glad we got that sorted."
Yeah, well, it's hard to make a list when you don't get to go out and see stuff,
Yeah, both my sons are really struggling this year. I know. I saw your partner there earlier today, and she was like, "Ideas?" I'm like, believe me, it's not for a lack of asking. That the two of them are really just
gift cards. Yeah.
They just don't Xavier still has gift cards from last Christmas. He said he's got $150 worth of Amazon cards just sitting on his desk. He's like, I don't know what to use them for. I don't really need much right now. I said, well, they don't go bad, so just sit on them, and you will eventually, because eventually mom and dad are gonna stop paying for stuff.
They used to actually, yeah, that's true. They used to expire them gift cards, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you have to like register them by a certain point or whatever, but yeah.
I don't know, like a certain Canadian air travel points thing. I just discovered the other day that I have 0 points after like years and years of collecting, and apparently they expired them in 2020. And again, another. Where do they think we're going in 2020 that we'll be using our cards, like our travel rewards points, right?
Yeah, I do belong also to I believe a different travel rewards thing, and I actually went onto their portal not that long ago because I was thinking the same thing. Like I've been amassing these points for eons, and I do travel a fair bit for work, and thought, oh, I wonder where I'm sort of at. And I looked at it and I was thinking, well, should I just keep sitting on these points on the hope that eventually I'm going to take a vacation somewhere sometime down the road somewhere, or should I use them for something for which I have an immediate use? So I cashed in some of my points, and I ended up with $1,000 worth of Amazon gift cards, which I just credited to my account because I collect very expensive books, and thought, I'm just, over this course of time, it's gonna pay for my book collecting.
Right. Does it begin with an A and end with Aeroplan?
It does, actually. Yes.
Yeah. I just logged on the other day and I have like no points. I don't understand what happened to the points.
Yeah. I know Sherry had some problems with that too. I don't know what the circumstances were, but she has to reconnect her account. I don't recall what she said the issue was, but
They're jerks.
I had amassed a substantial amount of points over the last decade plus, so I was making damn sure they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my mother had points too.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
I need to log in her password. Interesting.
I need to hop off here.
Okay.
All right.
See you guys next time.
We'll talk to you next week.
Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.